يا إلهي انظر إلي فالهوى استولى علي لم أجد بين يدي عملا يرجى
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. In the last lesson we talked about Nawaqidh al-Wudhu, the things that nullifies wudu, the causes of the lesser impurity. And we said that there are 4 causes of the lesser impurity. Nawaqidh al-Wudhu arba'a. And we talked about the first one, and we said that anything that comes out of the 2 paths, the front path, the 2 private paths, the front path or the other path, whether it's normal or not normal, anything that comes out, it breaks wudu, except mani, because mani causes greater impurity, al-Hadathul Akbar. So therefore when it comes out, it cannot be the cause of al-Hadathul Asghar, and we talked about it last time. الثاني زوال العقل, when somebody loses his senses, he becomes senseless, whether through sleep or insanity, epileptic fits, becomes too drunk. So when he loses his mind, except when if he sits or puts his lower body, where his maq'ad, the place of sitting, he puts it firmly on something, so that even if wind wants to come out, it doesn't come out. Therefore, if he goes to sleep in that position, it's fine, it doesn't break his wudu. Whether that something is the floor, or whether he is on a horse, or whether he's sitting on a chair or anything, as long as it is firmly, his maq'ad is firmly touching the place he's sitting. But we need to make sure that he doesn't move in his sleep. So if he sleeps in a position and wakes up and finds himself in another position, his wudu is broken. Or that he is not too thin, because if he's too thin, it means, if he's too thin, he's bony. So it means because he is bony, his hips, they touch the ground, and in between it doesn't touch. Or he is too thick that his maq'ad, the place he's behind, does not touch the ground firmly down. So if it's too thin or too fat, too thick, therefore it will break his wudu. So 2 things we talked about. Today we are going to talk about الثالث التقاء بشرتي رجل وامرأة كبيرين أجنبيين من غير حائل, the touching of the skin of man and woman. كبيرين, they have to be big. أجنبيين, they have to be ajanib, meaning not mahram. من غير حائل, without any barrier. So if a man touches a woman or vice versa, the skin touching the skin, so when the 2 skins touch, so it means if a nail touches a skin, then that doesn't break wudu. If you touch the hair of a woman, that doesn't break wudu, because that is not skin. It has to be skin to skin. Okay, and it has to be skin to skin. So if there is a barrier, even though it is very light barrier, you have a sheet of silk, as long as it's the barrier, then it means not skin to skin. It has to be skin to skin. It has to be a man and a woman, and they have to be kabirain, meaning not small. So what is kabirain here? It means they have reached an age where they can be desired, sexually desired. So this differs from custom to custom. But they have to be sexually desired to those people of sound nature, not people who are sick. So those people of sound nature, if they say that this boy now has become old enough to be desired, or this girl has become old enough to be desired, it means that if they get touched by the opposite sex, then the wudu breaks. They have to be ajnabiyayni, that they are not mahram, because if it is mahram, it means you cannot marry them. So if they are ajnabi, the ajnabi touches the ajnabiya, then the wudu breaks. If there is no mahramiyah. Mahramiyah is achieved through three things. It is achieved through blood, or through breastfeeding, yes, or through marriage, isn't it? And by marriage we don't mean that a woman that it is haram for you to be married now, it might be that she is not your mahram. For example, somebody is married to a person and she has a sister. So it is haram for you to join those two together in one marriage. But she has not become your mahram. She is still an ajnabi. But you are married to a woman. The minute you do nikah, the mother has become haram for you forever. Isn't it? So she has become your mahram. You are married to a woman after, nikah, after intercourse, the daughter becomes haram for you forever. She has become your mahram. By mahram of musahara, through marriage, we talk about those people who become haram for you forever. Not those people who temporarily become haram for you. Because if you're married to a woman, it is haram for you to be married to her sister. It's haram for you to be married to her auntie. Yes? It is haram for you to be married to her niece. But as long as you are married to her, if you are divorced to her, it means now you can get married to her sister, or to her auntie, or to her niece. Yes? So it means they have not become your mahram. So those still remain as ajnabi. If you touch them, they break your wudhu. Your wife as well is an ajnabiyya. So therefore she also breaks your wudhu. So if the skin touches of a man and a woman, they have to be kabiraini and they have to be ajnabiyaini. Yes, min ghairi ha'il. Okay. What if somebody is khuntha? Then it is best to say that your wudu has broken, because there is ihtimal. Khuntha mushkil. Khuntha is that person who has both sexes. Yes? So you touch them. If you're a man, you touch that person, you don't know whether to call it a him or a her. So it's best to say that your wudu has broken now. الرابع مسقوب للآدمي أو حلقة دبره ببطن الراحة أو بطون الأصابع. To touch the private parts of a human being, whether it's the al-qubul or ad-dubur. So when you touch the private parts of a human being, ببطن الراحة, it has to be with the inside of the hand, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a hadith, he said إذا أفضى أحدكم, and ifdha, it is with the inside of the hand, al-ifdha. Because one hadith he says that anybody who touches his private part, he should make wudu. That is am. But in another hadith he says إذا أفضى أحدكم, and ifdha in the Arabic language has to be with the inside of the hand. So if you touch the private part with the inside of the hand, batnul raha, this is batnul raha. Yes, the inside of the hand. Wa batnul asabi' is the inside of the fingers. So this is the inside of the fingers. For this, they say if you put your hands together, the parts that touch, they are the inside of your hand. And for the thumb, you do like this. That's the inside. So it means this edge is not the inside of the hand. And the edges on the fingers are not the inside of the hand. And the fingertips are not the inside of the hand. The inside of the hand is that. Yes? And the thumbs you can do like that. This is the inside. So when somebody touches the inside, somebody touches his private part, whether it's the front private part and by front private part we mean the dhakar only, the penis. So the testicles does not break wudu. Yes? And وَحَلَقَةُ دُبْرِهِ, and halaqa we talked about when we were talking about istinja, is the place of coming out. If you are to stand up, that place comes together, it touches together. That is the halaqa. So touching that. So touching the inside of the thighs, that doesn't break wudu. But it is sunnah when somebody touches his testicles or touches anybody's testicles or the inside of the thighs, it is sunnah to do what? To do wudu. But it does not break, because the Prophet ﷺ talked about the private parts, and these are the private parts. Those that are near that is not considered as a private part. The Prophet said, "Man massa dhakarahu." Yes? And the testicles are not called dhakar. Okay, so whoever touches the dhakar, then and whether it is yours or somebody else's, whether he is big or small. Yes, so the women at home or the fathers at home, when they're doing istinja to their children, yes, their wudu break. But the person who is being touched, their wudu does not break. We're talking about who touches. When you talked about basharatay rajulin wa imra'atin, when a woman and man touch, whether you are the toucher or you are the one who's been touched, it breaks wudu. But for masud dhakar, the one who is touching the private part, his wudu break. The one who is not touched, then his wudu does not break. Okay, unless it is of the opposite sex. Okay, so 4 things break wudu. Going to the toilet, yani al-kharj min as-sabilain, to lose your senses, to touch a woman, or for the woman to touch a man, and to touch the private parts. Now, فصل من انتقض وضوءه حرم عليه أربعة أشياء. Whoever's wudu is broken, then it is haram for him 4 things. It is haram for him to do 4 things. As-salah, it is haram for him to do salah. Wat-tawaf, and also tawaf is haram for him, because the Prophet ﷺ said that tawaf is like salah, except in tawaf you are allowed to talk, and in salah you are not allowed to talk. But he made salah like tawaf. So therefore, tawaf also needs tahara the way salah also needs tahara. So it is haram for somebody to pray when he hasn't got wudu. Okay, unless he is faqidut tahurain. It is somebody who can never make tahara. For example, he is in prison, he is tied. Okay, so he cannot make tahara. Okay, he has asked for time to pray and things like that. They say we are not allowing you any water. We are not allowing you any, turab, anything. He's tied. So he cannot make tahara, but he has to pray. So he is called salah of the one who has no tahara, the 2 taharas, whether it is the greater impurity or the lesser impurity. So for him it is allowed to pray, but only in that state, faqidut tahurain. So it is haram to do salah, it is haram to do tawaf. Massul mashafi, it is also haram to touch the mashaf, al-Quran. Wa hamluhu, and it is haram to carry the mashaf. By touching the mashaf, we say that the mashaf itself is haram to touch. The cover of the mashaf, these covers that we have, okay, it is not a mashaf, but they have now become like the mashaf. So they take the hukum of the mashaf. It is haram to touch it without wudu. Some people have boxes are made for the mashaf to be kept. Yes. So if the mashaf is inside that box, this box is for keeping the mashaf. It is not just any box. It is always for keeping the mashaf. So if it is inside that box, the mashaf, to touch the box is haram. Okay. Some people, like that people who go to madrasa, they have a bag for the mashaf, but this is only for the mashaf. It is not a bag to put books in. This bag is for the mashaf and the cover and so on. So therefore, if the mashaf is in it, it is haram to touch that bag. Some places they have, like things they hang the mashaf in. If the mashaf is in that thing, then it is haram. As long as now the connection has become to the mashaf, it has lost its connection to anything else. It has become the cover of the mashaf. Yes, the cover of course it is haram to touch it, even if it breaks off. As long as it's called this is the cover of the Quran, it has kept its connection, then it is haram to touch it. As for the box or the bag, the thing, the place where the mashaf is hanged, as long as the mashaf is inside it, then it is haram to touch these things. Wa hamluhu, it is haram to carry the mashaf as well. So if you have the mashaf, you can have the mashaf by itself, then it is haram. You can have the mashaf with other things. So you have, for example, you're going on a journey, so you put your clothes and the mashaf inside your bag. Now when you're carrying that, if you are intending to carry the mashaf, it has become haram to carry that bag. Okay, but if you're just carrying your luggage, it is fine. Therefore, they say the ulama, they come up with like a hila. For example, you find the mashaf is on the floor and you need to pick it up. Okay, so what they do, they put something with the mashaf and they then carry everything together. But remember, your hand must not touch the mashaf. Okay, so, and then you say that I'm carrying this luggage. Therefore, it is fine. Okay, but as long as you do not intend to carry the mashaf, it is carried with other things, and you intend to carry it as luggage, then it is fine. But if you're intending to carry the mashaf, whether it's with other things or whether it's by itself, then it is haram. Okay, masul mashafi wa hamluhu. 4 things are haram for somebody who has no wudu. As-salah, at-tawaf, masul mashafi, and hamluhu, carrying the mushaf as well. Okay. For salah, of course, any kind of salah, and anything which is in the form of salah. So sajdatul tilawa is in the form of salah. Sajdatul shukri is in the form of salah. So these things are also haram to do when you don't have wudu. Sometimes those people who play football, they score a goal and then they go and do sajdatul shukri. Yes. So they have to have everything that they have to have in salah. To do satul awra and to face the qibla and to have tahara. All these things they should keep in mind before they go, because that is in the form of salah. Salatul janaza is like salah as well. The only person who can pray salah without wudu, we said, is faqidut tahurain, and also that person who is ma'dhur. We talked da'imul hadath, who has salasul bawl or salasul mani. So he does his special wudu or his special ghusl, and then he comes to salah. In reality, he has no tahara, but he is allowed to pray that salah. Now, next one, he says, وَيَحْرُمُ عَلَى الْجُنُبِ سِتَّةُ أَشْيَاء. It is haram for somebody who has the state of janaba, the greater impurity of janaba. 6 things are haram for him. We have the first 4 we talked about, and also al-lubthu fil masjid, to stay inside the masjid, it is haram for him. Okay, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, la taqrabu salah, do not come close to salah. Okay, so Ibn Abbas rahimahullah ta'ala, he says coming close to places of salah. We know that because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the end he calls on and says illa abiri sabilin, yes, except the one who is going past. So you can't be going past salah unless you're going past the place of salah. So the person, it is haram for him to stay inside the masjid except if he is going through. There's a door from this side and a door from this side, and he wants to go through. So he can come through like that. But it is haram for him to stay in the masjid or to be roaming around in the masjid, because roaming around in the masjid is still inside the masjid. If he is going past through, then it is fine for him. So al-lubthu fil masjid, it is haram. And the 6th thing is qira'atul Quran. It is haram for him to read Quran. So 6 things: salah, tawaf, to touch the Quran, to carry the Quran, to stay inside the masjid or to roam around inside the masjid, wa qira'atul Quran, and also to read the Quran. It is haram for him to read the Quran. Okay, of course the ha'id, we are going to talk about the ha'id and nufasa. It is haram for them also to read the Quran. But it is haram for them to read the Quran intending that it is Quran. But for example, Subhanalladhi sakhara lana hadha. Yes, Alhamdulillah alladhi sakhara lana hadha. Wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun. This is Quran. But when you are going now, you are going onto a vehicle, you are reading it as what? As a dua. So therefore, if you are doing that as a dua, it is okay. Or as hisn, protection. Before you go to sleep, you always read Ayatul Kursi, you read your quls and things like that. Then as hisn, it is fine. So somebody who is junub, or she is ha'id or nufasa, okay, it is fine for them to read it not as Quran, but as dua, as protection. You say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It is Quran, because Sulaiman alayhi salam, he said, yes, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim is Quran. But when you say it as Bismillah, the thing you start with like that, and Alhamdulillah when you finish things, yes, and Isti'adha also, all these things, if they are done not as Quran, but as something else, as protection or as dua, then it is okay. He says, وَيَحْرُمُ بِالْحَيْضِ عَشْرَةُ أَشْيَاء. It is haram for a person, for the woman who is menstruating, is in her monthly period, and the same thing for the nufasa, the one who is in that period where the blood after birth is still coming out. It is haram for them to do 10 things. Okay, it is haram for them to do the 6 things we talked about: as-salah, at-tawaf, masul mashaf, hamlul mashafi, al-lubthu fil masjid. It is haram for them to stay in the masjid as well. Okay, it is haram for them to read the Quran, just like we talked about. But what if it's somebody is a hafidh al-Quran, and of course for the junub it's easy, they just go and make ghusl. For the ha'id, what is she going to do? She has maybe 7 days, 6 days, sometimes up to 15 days. So it is not haram for them to look at the Quran and read it without voice, or even to move their tongue, because it is haram to read. Okay, and reading in the Arabic language is called pronouncing things that you can hear. So as long as she is muttering and it's not audible, then that is fine. Or she's just moving her tongue, then it's not fine. Or passing her eyes over the Quran, it is okay, it is fine. But she is not supposed to read it until she hears. As for turning the Quran, okay, this is to do with masul mashaf, isn't it? So it is haram for her to touch the mashaf, or the junub as well to touch the mashaf. They talked about moving it with your sleeve. It is haram to move it with your sleeve. They talked about moving it with your pen. If it's moving it with your pen or moving it with your stick, then it has to be such that the paper is not on the stick. So if you move it in such a way that there is no weight onto the paper, because if there is weight on the paper, you'll be called carrying, isn't it? So you have to move it, if you can move it without the weight being on the paper, on the pen or the stick, then it is fine. Because moving with the stick is mukhtalafun fi. Some say it is allowed and some say it's not allowed. But then some people make the distinguishing and they say it is not allowed if there is weight onto the stick, because it means you are carrying it. And it will be allowed if there is no weight. Okay, they do that kind of distinguish. But some ulamas, they say it is not allowed, and some ulamas, they say it is allowed. This is all in the Fiqh Shafi'i. But then there's people who distinguish when it's allowed and when it's not allowed. Wallahu a'lam. So it is not allowed for her to read Quran. The things that are khas, special only to the haid and nufasa, then it is sawm. It is haram for her to fast when she is in that state. It is haram also talaq to be given to her. Okay, when the woman is in haid or she is in nifas, it is haram. When she is in haid, it is haram for her to be given. Even in nifas, it is haram for her to be given talaq. Al-mururu fil masjid in khafat talwithahu, to pass. We said passing from one end to the other, it is jaiz. So it is jaiz for her also to go past, but only on one term, that she is not afraid of making the masjid dirty. But if she is afraid that if I come through that door to the other door, I might make the masjid unclean, then it is haram for her to do that. But this hukum is not khas with her. It is not khas with the haid or nufasa. It is am to everybody. So even the person who is salasul bawli, if he is afraid that by going from one end to the other, some ball might come out and make the masjid dirty, it is haram for him. If anybody else is carrying najasa, he needs to take it from this side and go and throw it to the other side. But he is afraid if I do that, some of it might fall in. It is haram for him to do that. We know that you can wear shoes inside the masjid, isn't it? It is not haram. But if somebody's shoes has najasa, it has become haram for him now to come into the masjid with those shoes, because he will be making the masjid dirty. So it is haram for the one who is in haid, or anybody in that matter who will make the masjid unclean, for him to come into the masjid, even going past the masjid. So al-mururu fil masjid, to come through, to just pass inside the masjid, is haram for her in khafat talwithahu, if she becomes afraid that she might make the masjid dirty. وَالْعَاشِرُ الْإِسْتِمْتَاعُ بِمَا بَيْنَ السُّرَّةِ وَالرُّكْبَةِ. Okay. To have enjoyment when she is in hayd or she has nifas, then it is haram for the husband and wife to have enjoyment of her body part which is in between the navel and her knees. Okay, this is the mu'tamad, that it is haram, because the Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked, when she is in this state, what do we do? Then he said, ﷺ, that it is halal for what is over the izar. Yes, so over the navel it is halal, and below the knees it is halal. In between it is haram. Okay, and al-mu'tamad is that haram to touch. But some ulama say that it is even haram to look. Al-istimta'. And there's a bahth between al-istimta' wal mubashara. But some ulama say al-mubashara is more appropriate. So it is haram to touch. So as long as she has that part covered, then it is okay. It is also haram for the husband to make his body available to be touched by the woman with that private part, that part between the navel and the knees. So it is haram for him to touch that part, and it is haram for him to allow his body to be touched by a woman in that part. Okay, the hurma goes both ways. Not that it is haram for his part, body part, no. It is haram to let his body be available for that woman to make that part between her navel and her rukbah to touch his body. Okay. Mafhum now? Yeah. Okay. So al-istimta'u bima bayna as-surrati wal-rukbah. 10 things. And there is an 11th thing. We talked about it before. That a woman who is in hayd or has nifas, it is haram for her to do wudhu, isn't it? And haram for her to do ghusl. That wudhu with niyyah of ibadah. Unless it is for the hajj thing. When she goes for hajj, it is sunnah to do a ghusl because you are supposed to clean yourself, take away any kind of smell and things like that, and clean yourself, because the next time you go into this ibadah, you don't put any perfume, so it is sunnah to clean yourself. So that kind of ghusl, it is for cleaning. But to do ghusl or wudu of niyyah of ibadah, it is haram. So 11 things, inshallah. And all these things, it is haram for her to do unless she takes a bath. So sometimes the blood finishes and she goes for 3, 4, 10 hours and then she might take a bath. Okay, so it is haram for her until she takes a bath, except 2 things. Okay, Sawm, as long as the blood has finished, whether she has taken the bath or not, and she wants to go into Sawm, she can do that. We know that even the person who is in Janaba, he can start his Sawm while he is in the state of Janaba. So even her, okay, after 2 hours, Fajr time will come in. Okay, and she has finished her blood now. Okay, she has not taken a bath. Fajr came in. After Fajr, then she went and made her bath. It is okay for her to start her fasting, as Sawm. And also talaq. Okay, as long as the blood has finished, she can be given talaq even before she can take a bath. So 2 things it is allowed for her as long as the blood has finished. But the rest, even if the blood finish, it is haram for her to do these things until she takes a bath. Okay. The next one, he talks about the reasons for tayammum. So we talked about water, we talked about wudu, we talked about janaba, and we talked about the causes of wudu, and the causes of the nullification of wudu and the nullification of the greater purity, the causes of janaba. Then we talked about those things that is haram to do while you don't have wudu, and haram to do while you don't have tahara al-kubra, and the things that are haram to do when somebody is in hayd or nifas. Okay, what if there is no water? Then you have to do tayammum. Okay, the next lesson we are going to do, inshallah, is going to be about tayammum. And he has mentioned 3 reasons. And some books have mentioned 5, some books have mentioned 7. But there is only one main reason to do tayammum, that the person cannot use water. Okay, so whether he cannot use water because there is no water, or whether he cannot use water because if he uses it he becomes sick, or if he uses it then he might need the water later on, or he is afraid to use water, or he cannot get to the water. There is water, but he cannot get to it. So all this means what? That he cannot really use the water. So the reason for tayammum is if a person is incapable of using water. Inshallah, we'll talk about it next time, bi'idhnillah. Any questions about this? For the Shawafi', it is haram to touch the Mus'haf. Okay. And whether that hurma comes from the Quran or the Hadith, there is a difference of opinion whether the hurma came from the Quran, because the ayah of the Quran is not sarih. Okay, it might mean that it is talking about Lawhul Mahfuz. But the Sahabas radiallahu ta'ala anhum, they understood that when a person is in this state, then he does not touch the Quran. Okay, but whether they understood it from the Quran, whether they understood it from the saying of the Prophet, okay, there's a contest there. But they understood that if somebody is in this state, he does not touch the Quran. Okay. So there is no khilaf between the Shawafi' that if somebody does not have wudu, he cannot touch the Quran. Now.
What's the woman if she is a student learning the Quran?
Now, then she has to use other means, because I've looked into this a lot. But in the Shawafi', they don't come up with any hilas. So even if reading one harf of the Quran, it is haram. Okay, while other madhahib, they come up with some kind of way. Maybe reading a word and word, or reading half words, or doing this or doing that. But according to the Shawafi', they say it is not allowed. The only thing that she can do is read without sound. Okay, because that's not called reading. La yusamma qira'a. Okay, qira'a means when somebody makes the sound. That is why when people pray salah, if you don't make that sound of Surah al-Fatiha, according to the Shawafi', then your salah is not sahih. You have to read it at least to hear yourself. Okay, so as long as you can hear yourself, this is called qira'ah. If you cannot hear yourself, you're just reading Surah al-Fatiha, and you can't hear anything, then this is not called qira'ah, which means the salah is not sahih. So that rule also is used here. The woman, she can mutter to herself, but not understand what she is reading, or just move her tongue, or read with her eyes, it's fine. But in the Shawafi', they have not come up with hila, because we've tried to find somebody who has said something, but we haven't found anything in the circles of Shawafi'. Wallahu a'lam. Now, for somebody who is jahil, then that is udhr to some extent. But then sometimes, if somebody is a new Muslim, then all the ahkam for him, if he doesn't know, he is ma'dhur. Okay, or if somebody lives far away from the ulama, then also that is udhr. But if somebody lives near to the ulama, then it is not udhr, because al-ilmu farida. Okay, and by farida we mean everything that you need in your life. It has become wajib for you to learn about it. So if you are going to read the Quran, it is fard for you to know about the Quran, how to read it, everything. If you're going to pray, it is fard for you to know about salah from A to Z. Okay, you're not married, fine. You are married, it is fard for you to know everything about marriage. You're not going to travel, it's fine. You're going to travel, it has become fard for you to know everything about traveling. So for somebody who is living far away from the ulama, that is udhr. But if he is living close to the ulama, that udhr can take him only to some point, and then he becomes muqassir. Okay, he becomes liable to his action. Why did he not gain ilm? As for you to know, for example, ilmul mirath, it is not fard, because there's people. Okay, you to know how to become a qadi, it is not fard. But those things that you do every day, it has become. So before Ramadan, if somebody does not know about the ahkam of Sawm, it has become fard for him to know the ahkam of Sawm before. If somebody is going for Hajj, it has become fard for him to know everything about Hajj before he goes. Now, and that udhr about not knowing can only take him to some place. One thing I wanted to mention about the Quran, touching the Quran. What about those Quran that have translation with them? So they say if the most is translation, for example, more of it is English than Arabic, then this is not called Quran anymore. Okay. Yes, tafsir. So if, for example, we have tafsir al-Qurtubi and we have tafsir al-Imam al-Razi, if you compare what is Quran and what is the tafsir, so the tafsir maybe is 7 to to 12 times more than the Quran itself. So this is not called Quran anymore. So you can touch it. Yes, you can touch it, you can carry it without wudu. But it is sunnah to carry any kind of ilm kitab. It is sunnah. It is makruh to carry ilm kitabs without. It is sunnah to carry ilm kitabs with wudu. It is sunnah when you are doing dars, studying or teaching, to do it with wudu. But it is not haram to touch something like that. Now, as for those things that sometimes are carried with people, yes, or some people hang pictures of Quran, isn't it? So is it haram to touch them or not? Then the Shafi'i, they say that when that thing was made, what was it made for? Was it made for reading, or was it made for something else? So if it was made for something else, then it is not Quran. Okay, so those things that are made for decoration, or some people, they make such a small Quran that sometimes they carry for, protection, but it is not readable. Okay, so then that is not Quran. But this Quran that is we have on our shelves, okay, nobody can say that this was not made for reading and studying. So whether the person made a Quran like this for any other reason, we cannot accept it. But if it's made for hanging it up, like Ayatul Kursi or other surahs, or if somebody, they make the small ones, yes, you can't even read, then that does not break. That does not break. If you don't have wudu, it is fine to touch it and carry it, because we do not consider those things as Quran. Now, طيب. الحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.